Welcome back, it's Seth here. Today, I'd like to discuss the habits that are keeping the middle class stuck in the rat race. I've worked in a large accounting firm for the past several years, and I've worked with hundreds of different clients, from individuals that are employed in all the different industries and sectors, and individuals that are running small and mid-sized businesses. One thing that I did find was that a lot of these individuals were struggling to live comfortably and get wealthier. And in my opinion, these are hardworking individuals, and this was super concerning. So I realized that there were certain habits that were keeping these individuals stuck in this rat race and not giving them the ability to move ahead. So in this video, I've compiled the top 5 habits that I found were really keeping individuals stuck in this rat race. And before I dive deeper into this video, please hit the like button down below, and if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe to help grow our channel. Now that you hit the like button, let's dive in. So the first habit that most individuals in the middle class are struggling with is that you're probably not making the money that you should be. What I mean by this is if you've been working for the same employer for about 3 years and in the same position, there's a very good chance that you're not making what you should be. I'll give you my personal example. Like I said earlier, I've worked at a large accounting firm for several years. At this firm, I started off as an intern, where I completed a 1-year internship. Once I finished my internship, I was given an offer to come back full-time. So the following year, when I went back for my full-time position, I realized that I was being underpaid. External employees that were being hired for the same position that I was working were making $5,000 to $7,000 more, even though I had been with the firm a lot longer than they had. And I realized that this was a real issue when I got promoted to senior tax accountant. This is where I realized external hires with less experience were making upwards to $10,000 more than I was. And I was dealing with way more clients than they were. So if you're someone that's been in the same position for 3+ years, I highly recommend that you look around in the market and what the current rate is for your job. You might be surprised, and you might be selling your time for a lot less money than you should be. If you don't look at other opportunities and what they're paying, you're probably most likely going to keep taking that 3% annual raise. So if you're someone who has a salary of $50,000 and you get that 3% raise, you're only going to make $51,500 the following year, where an external hire could make $55,000 or more for the same job that you're doing. It's important that you get paid a competitive wage so you're getting paid what you're actually worth. The second habit that most individuals in the middle class are struggling with is not exercising delayed gratification. Delayed gratification is really important if you want to be successful in almost anything. Even though we live in a world where you click a button and you get everything now, that's not entirely true when it comes to becoming successful. There was a very famous study done called the Stanford Marshmallow Experiment. In this study, children were given 1 marshmallow to consume immediately. However, if they decided to wait 15 minutes, they could get 2 marshmallows. During this 15 minutes, the researcher would leave the room and let the child decide, so that there were no external influences to change the decision of the child. And here's when it gets interesting. In follow-up studies, children that waited for the second marshmallow had certain different outcomes versus the children that didn't wait. What they found was the children that did wait for the second marshmallow had higher SAT scores, higher educational attainment, lower body mass index, and lower behavioral issues. And I know what you're thinking now. Where are you going with this? I want you to think of your coworker and think of their spending. When they get a paycheck or a bonus, what happens? When most people get a paycheck or a bonus, they have this certain urge that they have to buy something. And most likely it's going to be a pricey product. This is called impulse spending. And after you've made that purchase, and most of those individuals have this regret that they shouldn't have done it and that they won't do it again. However, this cycle repeats. One thing you need to understand is building wealth is a long-term game. It's not going to happen overnight. One of the best investors to ever live, Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger, have talked about delayed gratification multiple times and its importance. Warren Buffett famously said, "Someone's sitting in the shade today because someone planted a tree a long time ago." And Charlie Munger has said, "If you're glued together and honorable and get up every morning and keep learning every day, and you're willing to go in for a lot of deferred gratification all your life, you're going to succeed." If you're someone that has impulse tendencies, this is something you definitely have to work on. If you can work on your patience and your ability to look at things in long term than short term, you're on a very good path on becoming wealthy. The third habit that most individuals in the middle class struggle with is being aware of your finances. In my opinion, this is probably one of the most important aspects of making money. It's knowing where your money is actually going. The amount of times I've heard that most individuals say that they're aware of where their money is going, but once a review is done, they're in complete shock. One personal example I can give you is that I worked for a client that constantly complained about not being able to save more money and that they weren't able to grow their investments as much as they like to. So I requested they send me their bank statements and their credit card statements to see where their money is actually going. From these statements, I realized that they were spending a lot of money every single month, around $8,000. And from the $8,000, I realized that they were spending almost half the amount, so close to $4,000, just on going out to eat at restaurants. So when I reach out to the individual to ask them if they're aware of how much money they're spending on these restaurants, I got the typical response, which was probably not a lot of money, maybe around $1,200 a month. To their surprise, they were spending close to $40,000 on just restaurants each year. So that's a lot of money that wasn't hitting their savings and their investments. So what this example teaches you is that it's important to track how much money you're spending and where you're spending. I personally find there's two different ways that you can track your spending. I personally, at the end of each month, review my credit card statements to see how much money I've spent and where the money's gone. And I use an Excel sheet to input all the expenses. You can use a tracker if that's easier. The other way is that you track as you spend. If you know you're someone that will not check your statement at the end of the month, or you'll keep putting it off, then just track it as you spend your money. You can either write it down or use an online tracker to make sure that you captured all your expenses. So by tracking your expenses, you can adjust your spending to reach your goals that you have. The fourth habit that most individuals in the middle class struggle with is that they avoid risk. This was something that was certainly very surprising and very interesting to see. A lot of individuals in the middle class were scared to invest, and I'm even including individuals that worked in the accounting and finance industry. They would prefer to put their money into a high interest savings account rather than the stock market. Whenever I confronted individuals that weren't investing, they gave me two similar answers. It was either that I don't have enough money to invest, or that the stock market is very risky, which is fairly in line with what Yahoo Finance has reported. It is being reported that 53% of those who don't invest in the market cite a lack of money as the main reason, with millennials as the age group least likely to give that response, 42%. Almost 60% of Americans aged 65 and older say that they lack the savings to invest in stocks. Meanwhile, 21% do not trust themselves and say that they don't know enough about stocks to invest. 9% lack trust in stockbrokers or advisors. 7% believe the stock market is too risky, and 2% fear high fees. If I'm being very honest with you, investing is not that difficult, especially in today's time. It is recommended that the average person consistently invest in the S&P 500 index. The S&P 500, known as Standard & Poor 500, is a stock index that consists of the 500 largest companies in the United States, and generally is considered the best indicator of how the US market is performing. Since the S&P 500 was introduced in 1957, its annual return, including dividends, has averaged over 10% through the end of 2024. And what the most interesting part is that 88% of active large cap funds failed to beat the S&P 500 index over the past 15 years. So what this means is that if you consistently keep investing in the S&P 500 index, you will keep growing your wealth and you don't have to worry about hiring a team to manage your money. And I do understand the stock market has been but remember, we're investing for the long term, and in the long term, we will come up on top. The fifth and the last habit that most individuals in the middle class struggle with is that they buy liabilities over assets. This is a key difference between the middle class and the upper class. The middle class seems to purchase more cars, gadgets, or trendy clothes that all just go down in value. Whereas the rich, they tend to buy assets to grow their wealth over time. From the chart, we see the middle class with a net worth of anywhere from $0 to $471,000. We see that the principal residence makes up most of their net worth, as the principal residence is the cornerstone of the middle class's wealth. The combination of the principal residence and pension accounts makes up 80% of the net worth of most middle class individuals. And assets like stocks and mutual fund only make up 4% of their wealth. Now, if we look at the upper class, these are individuals that are worth anywhere from $471,000 to $10.3 million. These individuals represent 20% of the richest households in America, minus the top 1%. For these individuals, the principal residence makes up a smaller part of their net worth. Instead, we see a higher mix of financial assets, such as stocks, mutual funds, business equity, and real estate. Most individuals in the upper class own additional real estate to their principal residence. And if we do want to compare to the ultra-rich, these are individuals with net worth greater than $10.3 million. And here you can notice we see that the principal residence doesn't make up greater than 7.6% of their net worth. At this stage, most of your net worth is going to come from business equity and real estate. This makes sense if you think of the ultra-wealthy individuals like Jeff Bezos. Most of Jeff's net worth is going to come from the businesses that he owns, and a very small portion is going to be his principal residence. So what this chart is showing you is that it's more important to buy assets than liabilities, especially if you want to get wealthy. So that expensive BMW that you've been wanting, I would hold off on that, because that's only going to go down in value, and the maintenance and repairs are going to cost you an arm and a leg. It's important that you focus on growing your wealth, because once you have sufficient money, you can buy that expensive car or that lavish vacation that you've been wanting to go on. I hope you guys took down some notes on some bad habits that most middle class have, and if you have any of these habits, I hope you're able to change them to help you become wealthy in the future. So I hope you guys found this video helpful. Please stay tuned for future videos, and until next time, remember to keep investing.